So I showed this demo to a few other people, and it seemed like people's first instinct was to play the game, or else when the demo finished, they were trying to drag the piece around because they wanted to play the game themselves. So what I decided to do was, try to add some functionality in it, so it can also be played as a game in addition to just showing the demo. So we can still click the buttons here, like 5 disk demo, and it will do the demo for that, or 7 disks. But also on the page load now, you can see I've added a bunch of new buttons, and also it doesn't start the game automatically. So it depends on what people click on, what's going to happen. So if we click, for example, play with 3 disks, then we populate it with 3 disks, and I'm setting the top one as draggable. So I've included jQuery UI, and I'll just show you first. So if I click on the bottom one here and try and drag around, nothing happens. But if I click on the top one, it's draggable. Okay, so we're going to use jQuery UI's draggable and droppable, and attempt to turn this into a working game. I can click another one like play 8 disks, and also none of the ones below the top one are draggable, but the top one is always draggable no matter how many disks. So let's start off at the with the HTML, and you'll see here I have 2 ULs now. One UL holds all the play game buttons, and the other one holds the disk demo buttons, and these have a class of demo, and these have a class of game. And that's the only changes there. If we go over to the JS file, so basically the way the animation starts now is by a click of a button. So if they click on an input with a class of demo, then we're going to do that demo stuff. However, if they click on one with a class of game, if I can find that here, right down here. So if they click on something with a class of game, then we're going to start that game functionality. Okay, so let's just talk about the game stuff first. So they click on it. We have jQuery right here, and we're selecting anything with a class of game, and we're binding on this click function. And the first thing we're doing is we're setting the disk amount to this adder ID and then running parseInt on it. And you'll see I did the same sort of thing with my game things, or the IDs here. So the games here have 3 play game, 4 play game, 5 play game. And the reason I give it a weird name like this is because parseInt is going to work well on this, because for parseInt to work, we need to have this 3 at the front of the string, not the end of the string. So that's why I give it those names. And so we're getting the disk amount, the amount of disks from that ID, running parseInt on it. And then what we're doing after that is running this function reset game data. Okay, and we've looked at this reset game data stuff before, and I'll show you it. So right now it has its own function, and reset game data is now in its own function right here. It has clear timeout, and then it's resetting all of the game's dynamic variables to what they were in the very beginning up here. Okay, and the reason I put that into a function now is because we're using that. If they click the demo one and we went into our else statement here, remember from the last video, we need to reset the game data here. And we also need to reset the game data if people want to play the game, because it's possible they were playing the demo before that and then they want to play the game after. So we're going to need to reset the data for the game too. So we have the reset game data into its own function, and we're invoking this function. That's the first thing. What we're doing after that is we're running this new set disk map function, and set disk map takes the amount of disks. Okay, let's just go to the top right here, and you'll see that I created a new variable here called game.diskmap, and that's set to an array of 3 empty arrays. Okay, and the reason it has 3 empty arrays is obvious, which is the game is always just going to have 3 posts. So we basically have post 0, post 1, post 2 right here, and depending on how many disks are used, this is going to be populated with elements like 0, 1, 2, 3, depending on how many disks there are. So basically what this is it's going to be a grid that tracks where the disks are placed. And we're going to need to always be updating this grid in order to know, what things are draggable, what's droppable. So we can go back down to the bottom here. And yeah, set disk map, and that takes the disk amount. Okay, so we can go over to that function right now. And this function is really simple. Basically, it takes the amount of disks, and then we are going to do this simple for loop and loop through the amount of disks. So however many disks there are, we're going to loop that many times. And we're going to set game.diskmap 0, which is the first post. Okay, you can make a comment right there. Okay, 0 is the first post. And then we're setting I to I. Okay, so this is going to increment each time. And if we go over to Firebug here, and we inspect here, inspect with Firebug, and we're going to go to console, and then let's refresh one more time, and we're going to get our object here, and you'll see disk map right here is well, right now you can see it's an array of 3 empty arrays, and that's because that's because we didn't start the game yet. So if I click here, play with 3 disks, and we click on that, and then we open this up, okay, this gets updated now. So you'll see the first post right here, 0. Inside of that, it has 3 elements, 0, 1, and 2, and that is these guys. Okay, so that's what we just did right here. So what you can see here is we did our for loop the amount of times a disk, so we're always going to get the right amount of disks here. If I click play with 6 disks, and then we close this up, and then we open it up again, you'll see that the 0 right here, it now has 6 disks going from 0 to 5, and you can see the first element of the array 0 is set to 0, and the second one, number 1, is set to 1, and that 0 is going to match up with our ID number. So remember in our JavaScript file, when we were creating the HTML, if I can find it, right, in our populate disks function, you see we created the divs dynamically. So div class is set to disk, ID equals disk, ID plus I. So we create this ID dynamically, and that's how that works. So basically 0 is going to be this the top one on the post. This is the top div, and this is going to be disk with the ID of ID of disk 0, disk 1, disk 2, disk 3, and so on. So we can just put a comment right here, like the let's see, the top disk is 0, and this is going to match up with the ID. So the ID was set to like disk 0. And disk 0 is our smallest disk, right? So this is how it's going to start out. The obviously the smallest disk is going to start out on the top. That's the way that works. The next thing we're doing after that is we're running the populate disks function, and this one is exactly the same as the populate disk that was used in the demo. So if we go up to that, you'll see that this is identical, and so whether it's the demo or whether it's the game, they both use this function. So this is one example why it's good to have all your code modularized into small specific functions, because if the code is modularized into small specific functions and each function does a very specific thing, you'll see like in the future when you make changes to your program and all of a sudden you want to make it into a game, well, things just turn out well for you when they're modularized into small specific tasks. So this populate disks, I didn't need to make any changes to it, and we just use it to put the disks on it. So whether it's 3 or 5 or whatnot, we put those disks where they're supposed to go. And the last thing here is the set draggable disks function. Okay, so you can see that after we click, for example, play with 6 disks or play with 7 disks, they're getting placed in the right position using that populate disks function. However, in the beginning, none of them were draggable. Okay, so we need to enable that draggable functionality. And the first thing you need to do for that is in your HTML, you need to include jQuery UI. Okay, so right after jQuery, we put in jQuery UI. So we can go back over to the code now, and we're running the set draggable disks function. Okay, so let's go up to that, and if I can find it here, yeah. Okay, set draggable disks. So we are doing a for loop here 3 times, which is the amount of posts. And for var j is set to 0, as long as j is less than the game disk map 0.length. So basically what this is here is disk map 0 is the first post. And remember when we started the game and we set the pieces, this is getting set to from the set disk map function. This is the one that placed all of those elements in there. So we can get the amount of disks from disk map 0.length, and then we're j++ right here. Okay, how many disks do we have? We're going to loop that many times. Now, in the beginning, we can go over to Firefox. It's going to help us a lot here. And we'll go over to console and refresh. And we'll open up our disk map right here. So you can see that, let's just click play game so we can get some stuff in here. And close this and open it again. And you can see, like, in the beginning, this 0 post, okay, it's got 5 elements, which is the 5 posts. Sorry, it has the, we have 3 posts and we have 5 disks on this first post going from 0 to 4. And if we open up 1 right here, you'll see I have an empty array here, okay? And there are no child objects. So right now, 1 and 2 are just, an undefined array element. I think they'd have a length of, I think they'd have a length of 1. They'd have 1 undefined element in it. Whereas disk map sub 0 right now has 5 elements in it. So it's going to have a length of 5. So what I'm doing here is we're starting from the very first one, so j is set to 0, and we're starting from a game disk map, and then this will be sub 0, and then sub 0. If it's not equal to undefined, then we know that there's a disk there, okay? And then we can run what's inside the if block here, okay? So in the first example, like I said here, will be game disk map sub 0, and the top disk, that's the first one it's going to reach, is the top disk because it's starting off looping from 0. So if that's not equal undefined, then we know there's a disk there, and then we go disk and then concatenate on j, which is going to be 0 the first time. And then we're going to be using jQuery's draggable method right here. So we just bind on this draggable method, and then it's going to become draggable. Now what we don't want is we don't want the disks under this to be draggable. So what we do after that is we put break right here. And that is going to break out of this nested for loop that we have right here. We don't want to put like return here, because that will return the function. We want to put break because all we want to do is we want to break out of this nested for loop, but we want to continue with the outer for loop. So we're going to let the outer for loop run after that, and that outer for loop is then going to go, it's going to check the next post, and it's going to find the first disk on it, and it's going to set that as draggable. So basically what this function is doing is going all through the posts, and it's finding the top disk on it, and it's giving it a class of draggable. And as soon as it finds the top disk, it gives it draggable, and then we break out of that nested for loop and go on to the next post.